they start, of course, for certain unexpected things happen around because of many things. And we are here today in this talk, apart from this side event, as a kind of a milestone. We're trying to look at what's happening in terms of the Paris Agreement implementation. We are going to look back and see how we have been successful in terms of implementation of Paris Agreement. We're looking at the global stock data. And we have seen the synthesis report from the committee. And before that, we have seen some of the scientific reports also coming up, the IPCC 6 assessment, and 2023 emission gap report, etc. And everything suggests just one unified message that we are not doing good. We are not in the course of achieving the 1.5 degree temperature target. So we need to see what are all possible options to achieve the objectives of Paris Agreement, and at least to keep our planet a livable place. So in this regard, us, the Switch Asia program, in collaboration with the Ministry of Climate Change and Environment Coordination of Pakistan and Sustainable Development Policy Institute, is organizing this event as a dialogue on integrating sustainable consumption and production in Pakistan's national determined contributions. We are trying to discuss what are the challenges and opportunities. So once again, good morning, welcome. My name is Rangapal Lavala. I'm the expert on climate change in the Switch Asia policy support component. And I'm going to be your master of ceremonies and to the latter part, the moderator of the dialogue. So without delay, to start, formally start, may I invite Dr. Abid Zulevi, the Executive Director of SDPI, who is partnering with Switch Asia program to organize this event, to welcome you all and just explain what we are going to do, all the objectives, before we move into the dialogue. Abid, okay.
Thank you, Ranga. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As Ranga said, sorry for the delayed start and the unexpected events were the queue where I was stuck, and they were kind enough to wait for me. So I'm the culprit for this delay. But thank you very much for reaching here, planning ahead and reaching here in time. And that planning ahead is the topic of today. It is all about sustainable consumption and production through planning ahead. We can see for last many COPs, the whole debate is revolving around financing. Yes, we do need finances for climate action, we do need financing for mitigation, we do need financing for adaptation. But along with this financing, perhaps we also need to look at the way we produce and we consume. And as we say that a dollar saved is a dollar earned. And this is exactly what the experts will be telling us, how Pakistan and the other countries in the region, they can actually make the best use of the scarce resources and finances available to them for a better future. Now, when I talk of circular economy in Pakistan's context, this is, I think, the most indigenous adaptation mechanism that we used to do. So, people of my age sitting in this room, we know that we used to go with the bag of either a cloth bag or a utensil, steel utensil to go and buy our food. We never had to rely on these carrier bags and shopping bags. In West, it is a very common joke about us South Asians. They say that if you want to identify a South Asian, go to his or her kitchen, and if you find empty bottles and empty jars full of being recycled and full of various spices, it means that certainly they have their roots in South Asia. But these things perhaps made our region more climate resilient, and now gradually we started drifting away from it, we started shifting from it. until we reached to a level where we had to rethink what we were doing 30 years ago or 25 years ago. Now, again, from Pakistan context, when I look at sustainable consumption and production, it reminds me of this famous quote that wealth belongs to individual, but resources belong to society. And no individual has right to use his or her wealth to manipulate what is not required, to extract what beyond his or her needs. And again, in case of South Asia, which is house to almost 1/5 of global population. This is the whole topic, it becomes even more important. Lately the focus had been on production, sustainable production, but I just want to end with highlighting focus on consumption as well. It's consumption that also matters. You saw that here in the negotiation stream, one of the sideline agreement that is taking place is reducing the emission from air conditioners by one-third by 2050. And again, this is something that needs to be done with our resources. Yes, we have now resources to have more air conditioners at home, we have resources to produce electricity. And then we keep pumping out the warm air in the atmosphere, and we have to then install more air conditioners, and in order to run those air conditioners, we have to produce more electricity. So this is a vicious cycle, and this is just one of the examples, but of course in agriculture and food system, in all other systems, there is this sheer need of rethinking our ways of production and our ways of consumption. I'll thank Switch Asia for their collaboration and their cooperation, their support. I know that you have been supporting different governments through your technical assistance, trying to equip them to get better prepared for climate action through SCP, and we look forward to learn from your experiences, what works and what doesn't work. Thank you very much. And my thanks to Ministry of Climate Change and Government of Pakistan for providing us this planning and giving us the opportunity to sit together and brainstorm on it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nadia. As you correctly mentioned, of course, we should thank the Ministry of Climate Change and Environment Coordination for not only giving the venue, but of course collaborating with us to have this discussion, which is quite important, not only for Pakistan, but region and globally as well. So now I would like to invite the Federal Secretary for the Ministry of Climate Change and Environment Coordination, Mr. Asif Haider Shah, to deliver the opening remarks of this dialogue. Over to you, sir.
Yes, thank you very much. Welcome all of you. I'm thankful to Dr. Asif Saleri, Switch Asia. I'm just skipping names rather than pronouncing them wrong. Lead anchor INP, GDGI, and other partners. World has been growing. It's a perpetual phenomenon. Right after that growth actually picked speed after industrialization. The first world, they grew without realizing that it grew at the cost of the environment. That realization came very late. No countries which were 100% dependent on fossil fuels in the early 70s, and they are going for complete eradication of use of fossil fuels by 2050. But the challenge before countries like Pakistan and many other developing countries is that we are home to nearly 85% of world's population as well. We need to support people. We need to grow. And the tricky part is how to grow without harming the environment and mitigating the climate change challenge. The Global Stocktake report, 6th IPCC report, and there they talk of course correction. But the path is very tricky and difficult. It requires a consolidation. So one important segment is this sustainable production and consumption. Because a country like Pakistan, we have 250 million people. People need to live, they need to consume also. How to use the best possible solutions that we live as well, we live comfortably, but not at the cost of harming the environment. That is the challenge, and that is what I will be looking at and expecting from today's panel. So I hope you enjoy the panel discussion, and when we finish, we all go back educated. And one of the takeaways is that never start a session and never fix it at 9 a.m. because I'm not going to come. But I value and I thank today's panelists, especially Switch Asia. We just had a brief discussion with them before this panel, and we look forward to working with them in the future also. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for your kind remarks as well as your collaboration again. Ladies and gentlemen, let me explain how it happens from how this discussion going on. It's not going to be a kind of a usual panel discussion. It's going to be a kind of a dialogue. We of course have invited some of the experts and expert institutions who have been working in this sector of different sectors: climate, material, resources, development. And because we all are part of this solution, we need to play a role in part of this, the entire block towards finding solution for this problem. So we start with a kind of an introductory presentation. I would say it's a kind of an introduction to trigger our dialogue. And then we'll continue our dialogue. To trigger this, I would like to invite our team leader, Dr. Zinaida Fanifa, to do an introduction to yourself and to the trigger.
Introduction to myself, I'm Zinaida. I'm team leader of the EU Switch Asia program. I guess it suffices. And Mr. Secretary, you seems like contradicting yourself. You are saying that it's wrong to start at 9, but nevertheless we had wonderful inside conversations which are probably even more valuable than official part, isn't it? So the lesson will become earlier and engage with people, with good people. Yeah. So thank you very much for being with us. Thank you those who are with us for being early and awake and dedicated. So after you will be rewarded with some coffee and tea on the back. Thanks again to the Pakistan pavilion hosts. It's very considerate. And what I will do, I will go rather quickly through the things which are fundamental, but it would be rather superficial, just to give us a bit of a common language, because we are aware that most of the people who are coming to COP are not the people who are coming to from the perspective of resource discussion and resource efficiency. So let us give us a little bit of a take from the resource efficiency perspective. Again, it's only ABCs, and try to connect it to the climate priorities and climate discussions. But of course, colleagues which are in the room will help us to really jazz it to the practical extent. So let us start with quick introduction for what is Switch Asia all about. It is a program, it's a technical assistance program of the European Union, which is one of the longest running. It's since 2007. The program has been investing in the grant component of it and policy support components more than 300 million since the beginning of each operation. And the main objective is to support transition of the region to low carbon, resource efficient and circular economy, while focusing on the supply chains, particularly those supply chains which are polluting, most polluting, for example, such as food supply chains, textile, leather, plastics, tourism, construction, and more. And currently, our coverage is 42 countries in the Asia Pacific and some of the Middle Eastern countries. As I mentioned, we have two components, which is a policy support component. Ranga and I and some experts in the room represent this. So we are acting on the request of the governments to assist the governments with SCP, sustainable consumption and production, circular economy, green economy related policies. But there is another component, which is called the grant, where funds are given to the SMEs and consumer organizations to pilot sustainable consumption and production actions on the ground. Currently, there are 33 grants are in operation in the region. Now, that's quickly about program. Now, the reason why we would want to bring the discussion of resource and resource efficiency to the conversation is because emission caused by material production, primary material as well as with material processing within the sector is dramatically growing. It's all the data from International Resource Panel, but it says that between 1995 and 2015, there has been 2.3-fold increase in greenhouse gas emissions from the material processing. And you can see the major culprits here on the slide. It's from the metal material, non-metallic material, plastic, rubber, wood production, and more. So that is the entry point for us. Now, again, to bring you into the minds of the SCP, Sustainable Consumption and Production and Resource Efficiency people, this is the philosophy behind it. So, the current model of development, the more resources we produce, the more wealthier the nations are becoming. And the Secretary is absolutely right. It has to, the growth, economic growth and development must happen because large proportion of the population in the world is still working on a very meager substance consumption, and therefore it's suboptimal. So consumption and resource use need to somehow not necessarily increase, but being done more efficiently to the greater benefit. So in other words, the ultimate challenge is, while we are continuing consuming resources, we are decoupling resources from growing of wealth. It's well-being decoupling, it's called. We are doing resource decoupling of resources from economic activity, and we are decoupling impact from the negative impact from resource use from the economic activity, which is called economic decoupling. And all of this is, of course, has been around for a while. So we are speaking first for the 25 plus years about sustainable consumption and production across the whole supply chain. Then the whole discourse of green economy, growth, green industry came and still remained with us. And finally now, for the last few years, we are talking about circular economy. These concepts have a core within them. It is essentially going out of the linear model of consumption and production, but they are somewhat different, and we can discuss how different they are, but it's not the point of the conversation today. We are dealing with all of this concept today. Now, thanks again to the very, very interesting work and profound work of International Resource Panel, we now have a very good argument why material efficiency matter for climate mitigation. So why material efficiency is material for climate, right? So two examples. This one is showing, it's a projection, it's a modeling for the car industry, which shows the life cycle emission from cars with and without material efficiency strategies in 2050. In the left scheme there, in G7 countries, wealthier, economically more advanced countries, and less economically advanced countries, in this case India and China, are shown. And it shows that life cycle emissions can be 40% less through material efficiency strategy than without material efficiency strategies in G20 country. And it can be 35% along the whole life cycle of cars. Emissions can be reduced through material efficiency strategies in China and India. Quite convincing. Now, similar data, projection data do exist for homes, which is a construction, and we will speak about this during the next session. Material efficiency also matters, so we could see that 35% reduction potential along the life cycle, 35% emissions can be reduced additionally through material efficiency in the housing and construction sector. That is for G7, and for China and India it's 60% more. So it's quite impressive. Now, again, we know the construction and building is very important for Pakistan and generally for anybody. And what we are saying here that low carbon design can be reduced, can reduce emissions from cement and concrete projects by up to 40%. And you can see some of the figures here. So we can eliminate 16% of the greenhouse gas emissions through manufacturing process decarbonization. That's through the process. Now, more could be then eliminated 6% and 18% respectively through the low carbon cement and concrete products, as well as optimizing the volume of materials. Well, interesting fact, so if in the house construction you would do more columns, concrete columns, you would need less cement actually to hold the floor. So logically thinking, but nevertheless huge gains can be done there. Now, a couple of more quick examples from other sectors. We know that for Pakistan textile is important. Through superficial carbon yarn and fabric dyeing, we can make huge reduction of water and energy. In fact, the technology which is shown here is waterless dyeing of textile, which leads to zero waste, zero use of water, much more efficient use of dyes, process chemicals and zero wastewater, and of course more energy efficient. So it is dye-coat technology company, and this is actually done in a production scale already. This example is from the clean dye company in Vietnam. Now, let me skip some more examples and come to the point which we are trying to make now today. There are projections about huge potential from the material of reduction of greenhouse gas emissions in material efficiency, massive ones in different sectors. There are examples which are brought to scale, but it's not sufficient. So what do we do together? So we really need to do the market transformation. Financing for climate and for some other actions are great, fantastic, needed, but the capital market will bring and invest in all of these technologies and practices through market transformation. So we need widespread market-based application and use of low-carbon circular products, services, technologies, and systems. It is a strategy to scale up those innovations and practices which are already there, but too few, still too few, and this is really for climate actions, so that we can get at the same time all benefit in terms of material reduction, pollution prevention, health, etc., etc. Now, final important, two more final points. So what we are saying is that if we look at some of the actions which are possible through the material reduction, material efficiency, zero material, etc., big ticket actions, they are there through the hydrogen, steel, cement, and some big ticket actions. So if we do a few of them, we get huge reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. At the same time, there are multiple number of energy and resource efficiency projects and technologies in different sectors across. It's a small individually maybe reduction, but if you do it massively, you get a really very large one. So this is add on to the climate potential which we are saying could be achieved by working with material efficiency and through sustainable consumption and production. This area, clean energy, clean transport, and currently food system, is a typical NDC, typical because it's of course growing now, NDC focus. But what we are suggesting, and that is what other colleagues will be speaking about, is really bring the whole bundle of those actions under the NDC as one of the one of the instruments which is helping countries to align their actions to climate benefit. What do we do for that? Several things need to be done. We need at the policy level end indiscriminate disposal, just close the back door. So things are becoming, companies are more stimulated to become circular. We need to nurture entrepreneurship, so the companies need to become more entrepreneurial, and they need to be, in a sense, de-risk. Their policy for de-risking their experimentations need to be there. There need to be innovation, much more massively, again, investment in innovation, policy toward innovation, because currently they are interesting technologies, they are interesting processes, but more need to be done, not only at the technology, technical level, but also at the business models, relations across the supply chain, etc. And of course, it needs to be financing through the risk-based financing, again, first loss guarantees. It needs to be demand aggregation, so big orders to the innovative products and services. So from the side of the government, which is green public procurement, but also from the side of the companies at the top of the supply chain. So all of this needs to be done in order for us to transform market. Otherwise, it will be very, very difficult for us to really achieve the benefits which we want. The final point here is that when we deal with resource efficiency, waste minimization, we are increasing benefits. It's actually, it pays in principle. Profitability is there, incomes are there, market access to some of the more strict market, things CBAM, European regulation, and cement and steel is the first target for that. So that is on the side of increase. But at the same time, it does decrease vulnerability, simply because we are diminishing productivity losses. We are keeping public health up, and we are also addressing infrastructure needs. We are working with better infrastructure. So, to conclude, recipe in circular economy de-risks the economy and society from the impact and risk of the unsustainable use of natural resources to generate and lead to generation of social and economic benefits. Let me finish here. So to give us a little bit of a ABC from a SCB, sustainable consumption and production, and circular economy perspective, and Ranka continue this conversation in a more interactive way. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Zenaida, for your ABC and SCP. Let me just say that we have limited time, of course. I know we started too late, and at the same time we need to release some of our discussants or the panelists in advance. Just to elaborate how we are going to conduct this. So this is going to be a dialogue, so everybody is going to participate. But we have invited a few panelists outside Switch Asia program, and of course we have Switch Asia colleagues also coming in and involved in the discussions and all. So ultimate objective of this dialogue is that to see from the Pakistan perspective, looking at the experiences of the other countries and the global experiences and the programs including situation, how Pakistan can think of integrate sustainable consumption and production aspects into their climate agenda, including national, but not limited to national determined contributions. So we can provide different aspects of it, and we have already done some work. Of course, our expert will also highlight that. But let me now invite two people, those who have not spoken during the event so far, to come in. But I would say they are coming from very complementary, but at the same time, two different aspects of our argument: the climate and the material. Let me first introduce Achala basically, Dr. Achala basically. She's the director for Asia in the Global Green Growth Institute. Achala is not involved in negotiations in this COP, I know, but of course for many years she has been a very involved person in the COP process. She has been the legal advisor for the LDC group from support coming from the IIT in UK, and she's been doing that work. So, and also she involved as a lead author in the fifth assessment report, if I'm not mistaken, in IPCC, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. So she can bring the climate aspect, the scientific aspect, as well as the global policy making aspect, and now from the Global Green Growth Institute aspect, how the country engagement is. Achala, may I invite you to the panel. And then we have the other side of this argument, the resources. And in parallel to IPCC, there's another global scientific body, what we call the Intergovernmental Resource Panel, IRP. IRP looking at the resources aspect and the resources outlook. And IRP has a very flagship report, like the assessment report of IPCC, we call it Global Resource Outlook. So we have the lead author of the Global Resource Outlook for 2024, Hans Gunski. I'm sorry if I pronounce your name badly. I'm so sorry about it. I hope you can rectify it as we move along.
My name.
Okay, right. Okay. So do I. My name is pronounced differently. So he's the lead author, and at the same time he's the former director of the European Environment Agency. So he has the European background. So we have complementary scientific views coming from these two eminent panelists. And at the same time, I also invite Zinaida and Abid also to sit in the panel. But the group will also engage in the discussion from different ways. And of course, we have our expert, Arif Rahman, who will join from the audience in the discussion. So, as the first round, what we'll do is I will ask some triggering questions from the panel, and of course, then anybody at any point, if you want to engage in the discussion, want to highlight any aspect, to ask any questions, please feel free to raise hand and indicate. We are quite happy to do this in a way. So may I start with you, Hans, and you can rectify my mistake as well before your intervention. IRP, of course, the Global Resource Outlook 2024 report will be launched soon, and that will give the new perspective of how the resources handling. From the IRP perspective, how do you see the IRP work can endorse, complement, or strengthen the discussions happening in the climate discourse, especially at the university, the complement? So I'll start with that question, so you can start. Hans?
Okay, well, good morning. Thanks for the invitation. Indeed, in the Global Resource Outlook 24 report, which is the flagship report of the International Resource Panel, we will be focusing on how a resource angle is absolutely necessary if we want to deal with the triple planetary crisis: climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution. and we add to that very explicitly human health and well-being as the desired outcome. Yeah. So very central to that is the logic of resource use and how it is connected to our economy. And we've seen a tripling, more than a tripling in the last 5 decades of resource use. We see a steady increase of that, and for the next decades we expect that resource use to continue to increase. And we will need more resources to deliver on the SDGs, particularly for the billions of people on this planet who, for all the good reasons, can aspire to better life conditions. We make a connection to well-being outcomes, better health, better infrastructure, better housing, better food, all of that. But so the emphasis is indeed on making sure that when we use these resources, we create better well-being outcomes, specifically for those who are lacking them, and that is not those living in the wealthy countries or the very wealthy in the not wealthy countries, because those are two aspects. So we need distributional discussions. Without a discussion about distribution of the use of resources and their impact and benefits, we will not get there. Yeah. The second really critical thing is that the impact of our resource use now is way too big to deliver on the Paris Agreement, to deliver on the Kunming-Montreal Agreement, and to deliver on the pollution agreement. 50% or more of our greenhouse gas emissions come from the first 2 stages of our resource use, mining and processing. So if we avoid, through circular economy, through sharing mobility in systems, rather than each owning something that weighs 2 tons, or to better deal with food waste, we can actually save a lot of resources by not having to dig up new resources and transform them into something that we then make materials of. This is a really important message from the report. Another really critical element is on biodiversity. We are losing a lot of biodiversity, land-based, by the way in which we organize our food system and which we use biomass. Biomass in a variety of ways. So we will need to focus on much more intelligent biomass use and on a much more sustainable food system. And that is in the interest especially of the least developed countries and those in the lower middle income countries. Is this possible? Yes. We see a stabilization of resource use in the wealthiest countries, and the report is very clear. If we want to create a space within planetary boundaries for everybody to have a good life, the absolute use of resources in the wealthy countries will have to decline. That's a very clear message. Not slow down, but decline. The biggest increase we've seen in the in the higher middle income countries. They have created and lifted a lot of people out of poverty, but they've often done it with very inefficient methods of production and consumption. And that's where the focus should be on technology that improves that efficiency paradigm and on more sustainable consumption systems. For all the rest of us on this planet, it is fair to say that we will have to use resources to produce better well-being outcomes. And the way to do that is not by tweaking in the margins, we are well beyond that point. The way is to think systems. The mobility system, the food system, the built environment system, and the energy system. And I think a country like Pakistan and the region that you're working in has a lot of challenges there, but also immense opportunities when it comes to sustainable mobility systems. You are still building your infrastructure and housing in the region. It can be done in a very different way. You are still building a lot of the sort of innovative food system approaches and engaging with scientists. I mean, a lot of improvement is possible. So thinking systemically, I think, is the way forward. And I'll end with one example. If we want a sustainable mobility system, 3 billion electric cars on this planet by the end of the century is not the solution. We simply don't have the resources to do that. The question is, what role will an electric vehicle play in a sustainable mobility system? And if we can move in that direction, I think we can make major steps forward. So that's a bit in a nutshell some of the key messages of the GRO, the Global Resource Outlook, and how that relates to the discussion in the introduction that was given before.
Thank you so much, Hans, to giving that the valuable inputs. Yes, of course, it looks there's a huge climate benefit that we can achieve through sustainable consumption and production. Actually, may I turn to you and GGGI. We know that, of course, engaging with the member countries, supporting them in climate action, in green growth, etc. How do you see the potential of SCP, circular economy, in that whole process? What's your experience around it? So we'll start from there, and I'll come back to IPCC related.
Okay, thank you, Ranga. Yes, good morning, everyone. It's very nice to be here. Thank you to the Pakistan government. Thank you to Switch Asia for inviting me to speak at this event today. Actually, we do have a very good program in Cambodia funded by Switch Asia, where we actually look at the whole garment sector in Cambodia and government sector related to energy efficiency. So we've done 200 audits of garment factories, and based on the audit, the factories have now agreed, the companies have agreed to put solar panels on their rooftops. So one example of how Switch Asia is working really well. My role, as Ranga mentioned, I was in the thick of climate negotiations for so many years, but now actually I'm much more green growth, which takes climate change into the heart of the economic development, as Naida mentioned in her remarks. So what we do is we actually go into the countries and work with countries, the governments, to really bring in the green growth aspects into more economic development plans, the policies, as well as in particular investment mobilization. And Pakistan is the 41st member of GGGI, and we are developing the program there now, and I'm very pleased to see that they already do have an SCP plan in the country. And bringing this whole SCP discussion into national determined contribution discussion is one thing that we are also trying to do now. In the last exercise, last NDC enhancement exercise, we supported 30 countries to develop or enhance their NDCs through GGGI support. And now we are going into an exercise we call NDC 3.0, because the countries are supposed to submit a new nationally determined contribution or an updated one by 2025. So I think that's an opportunity for the countries to really go beyond the usual sectors that Naida mentioned, the energy, agriculture, etc., in the NDCs, to really go beyond and think about the efficiency and the material sustainable consumption and production, bring that into the NDC planning process. And for me, now we have had 2 rounds of NDC preparation. The third round, I think, has to be whole society, whole economy exercise, where we do bring in those areas that are perhaps not in the center of the second round of NDCs that we saw. And that goes, I think the policy alignment, the thinking of the strategies and the plans are really, really good. But we also have to, at the same time, really think about how do we bring in the finance discussion at scale, and also link it to the job creation and SME support, etc., because that, I think, is going to open minds and hearts of governments quite a lot when you link the discussion, the policy discussion, into the economic development, job creation, SME support. That becomes a whole different discussion. So the SCP, I've looked at NDCs in preparation of this discussion. I want to say that SCP, as Zunaida also mentioned, doesn't really feature to the extent that they should feature in the last round of NDC. So I think this is an opportunity for us to think about SCPs in that whole economic development plan of NDCs. I also want to say that I live in Korea. The head office of GGGI and my office, the Asia Regional Office, is also in Korea. And there is a very strong, heightened discussion now around the plastic treaty negotiations, because the Korea is going to host the next big conference in there, and therefore we are looking into how do we bring in this whole circular economy discussion into that treaty negotiations, but also very much in practical sense to implementation at country level. And in that sense, we do have a program now looking at circular economy approaches, SCP plans and approaches in whole ASEAN, so covering all 10 ASEAN countries. Funding comes from Korea ASEAN Cooperation Fund, and the SCP will feature heavily in that discussion. We are also going into more kind of practical level of discussions in relation to, for example, biodegradable plastics or sustainable transport. I fully agree with Hans when he says that, perhaps, having that many millions of electric cars may not be the solution, but we are looking into public transport, linking to electric mobility. And we are looking into building sector, energy efficiency in building sector. How do we think about the whole energy efficiency aspects related to appliances as well as other materials and other sources that goes into the building sector as well. So GGGI is very much into the practical implementation at countries that we are working in. We have 48 member countries now, and in Pakistan we are implementing the technology roadmap of Pakistan, currently looking at waste and water sectors to implement the technology needs assessment of Pakistan, and working very closely with the government in looking at how we bring in the sustainable consumption and production aspects as well to these sectors. How this work is going to move forward, in which subsectors are to be seen, but I think this work will also contribute to the national determined contribution process of Pakistan in the coming days. I'll stop here, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Achala, for that deliberation. It's really good to see the work. Yeah, the potential that we are showing in the countries. I'm sure this is quite interesting for Switch Asia programs, and I would like to, just building on that what Achala mentioned, how the countries we've been working around, and I think if you can explain the program modality of Switch Asia and why climate is important as a program.
And why Archana is referring to the Switch Asia work in some of the countries. No, so let me make two points. The modality of Switch Asia is done in a way that we have activities on the ground, and this is what you were referring to in the textile sector in Cambodia, where the whole sector, as we say, enhanced. You were referring to the need of getting to the whole sector, to the whole system. So it's the whole system of textile sector has been assessed from the perspective of circular economy opportunities. Assessment has been done, etc. It's really excellent, rather challenging piece of job, which leads to clear, interesting results. So this is done under the grants, where a few millions are given to the consortium, which is working with hundreds of enterprises, SMEs on the ground, modeling this kind of practices, making sure that these practices are workable, people are getting getting familiar, internalizing this kind of practices. So there is no argument it's for somebody else. So it's a business, they're building business case for those kind of practices. This is one element of situation. Another one is called policy support component, where we are, I mentioned it already, working with the government at the same time, telling to the government that those kind of policy or actions or roadmaps or frameworks need to be developed, for example, or we are developing it in order to exactly upscale this kind of practices on the ground. So it's a policy element and on the ground element. This is point number one. Secondly, maybe I can just take a few points also. Well, you triggered the point of plastic. So I'm hopeful that colleagues, our experts would explain one of the technical advisories under the policy support element, which is really focusing exactly on the building SCP targets into the NDCs. And we do look forward in linking with you and work on that. So that's just immediate follow-up. Some other activities which are relevant material for climate, which we are doing in the area of policy, is exactly in the area of climate, where our experts on demand supporting the governments in our target region, in Asia and the Pacific, to advise them on the potential views of looking, first a brief about negotiation towards the global plastic agreement, helping them to conceptualize and systemically look the whole process from the beginning, from extraction until the use stage, waste or circularity of the secondary materials, and also to advise the governments during the negotiation, so when they are particularly least developed countries. This is one. The second interesting example is work on green public procurement. Because, and this is where we are trying to bring the climate element and resource efficiency element there, because public procurement is a very strong instrument in market transformation. If you put, if you signal, for example, to the producers that in 2 years' time, in 1 year's time, in 3 years' time, those are kind of materials, technologies, processes which we are going to purchase and nothing more. You're creating enormous market pool and, again, investment from the capital market into this rather than through the public one. So we work with 5 countries, particularly with Asia, Southeast Asia, on this kind of process. Another one that we quickly mentioned maybe, and rather if you feel that, yeah, GDP, it was about GDP. And another one is we do work on the request of the ASEAN CSR network, which is a business SME network, to provide their members with understanding of what circular economy is and means. And so those are kind of building from the ground, not policy, but institutional development of the powerful networks in some regions. So just a handful of examples where work on resources, circularity, and climate naturally comes in is happening, and we are happy to connect.
Thanks. I know, Achila, you need to go for the next event, so probably I'll release you after directing another one question to you. Now what you mentioned is about the NDC as a very good policy instrument to integrate SCP and other national practices on the agenda. And you have been engaging in this area. I'm asking you a question from the country perspective. If a country wants to consider something in their national data contribution, there must be some sort of a prerequisite. So prefer to have kind of a characteristic. Do you have anything to add in that line? Do you think that there are special things that the country is looking to before they consider something within their NDC countries, so that Pakistan can also consider that line?
Well, I can frame my answer in different ways, but I think I'm going to talk about something that we are repeatedly hearing from countries, related to NDCs is the project pipeline. It's, what we are hearing is, I don't want another document that's going to sit in my shelf. I want practical and a strong and at scale and a bankable project pipeline. So I'm actually now telling the countries, perhaps let's start with the project pipeline. And let's start with the investment plan. Let's start with the finance plan. That actually, I mentioned before as well, when you link these documents, these policy documents into your economy and the economy at scale, it becomes a whole different story. And DGGI did we produced a research paper and that's called Closing the Finance Gap for Green Growth. And the three main areas that we have, everybody knows this is not a secret, but our findings is that the project pipeline in most of our countries are not bankable, and they are very small, they are not at scale, and the capacity gaps, human as well as institutional capacity gaps, are massive, and therefore we are really not properly implementing the NDCs. So for me, if the SCP is to be successful in the coming years, I think we have to really start thinking about a very, very strong project pipeline and at scale. This is my main message, and we have started to do this. We have changed our 2025 target, GGGI's investment mobilization target to $14 billion by 2025. We've already mobilized $8 billion, both through infrastructure finance as well as sustainable finance. So that's what we are going to looking at in terms of supporting countries in preparation of their next round of NDCs. And I would perhaps very happy to discuss with the partners who are here how we may perhaps join force, because I also believe that one organization alone cannot do everything that needs to be done, and the governments really appreciate honest and transparent support coming in their ways. So we could have a discussion around this, how we do it. The rest, in terms of making it a whole society, the consultations, having a focal ministry, having key data, all that I think our governments do know. And what their support they need is on the project pipeline. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Achala, for that elaboration. I'll be back to you because I know SDPI is providing a lot of policy, overall policy advisory support guidance to the government of Pakistan, including climate change. And from your perspective, if I ask how Pakistan would like to look at SCP, circular economy, and the whole NDC process, and of course learning from the previous experiences of NDC development and enhancement, what's your advice from where we should start and what we need to focus on?
Yes, thank you. I would say that there's a lot of work that's being done on sustainable consumption production without labeling it as SCP. For example, if you look at Pakistan's commitments towards SDG 12, the Goal 12, sustainable consumption and development patterns, there are already work being done on it. I can quote here the precision agriculture, the agriculture transformation plan. So the whole agriculture and food system is being remodeled following SCP, so that through this digitalization of agriculture, only the optimum dose of fertilizer and pesticides and irrigation can be applied. Likewise, this development in mass transit system in Lahore, Karachi, Islamabad, Multan, Peshawar, and other big cities of Pakistan, where rightly mentioned that increasing the number of cars or increasing the road length would not resolve the issue. We need to actually think of some sustainable mobility models. Similarly, there are other areas in which SCP is being implemented, but yes, there is always room for improvement, and I think that in the run-up to 2025, for the next global stock taking, this is the time when we should come up with new targets in mind. What is it that we would like to pursue in the short, medium and long term in terms of SCCP, in terms of SCCP facilitating climate action, and in terms of SCCP as a way for climate financing. I will conclude with one more example where we are actually now compelled to follow sustainable consumption production practices, and that is energy. Pakistan is an energy thirsty country, and unfortunately, like Sri Lanka, we are also facing this dollar crunch, and there is this strong realization that importing this expensive fossil fuel that will not take us anywhere. So we again need to think of some sustainable ways, both of production as well as of consumption of energy. And so for me, glass is half full, and how to fill the next half, that is where I agree with Angela that all of us collectively we have to play our role.
Thank you so much. I know our expert based in Pakistan, Arif, wants to intervene. Arif, may I ask?
I hope everyone can hear me. Thank you, Ranga, and I think it was a fascinating discussion, hearing one or two things in particular. I would just like to comment on something and also invite Dr. Abid's comment on something, especially that Hans said from your experience, Dr. Saab. Hans referred to the fact that we need to start planning at a very early stage when it comes to resource allocation, especially he mentioned mining of resources and others. Now, when I look back at the way resource allocation is done in Pakistan in particular, there's always a bit of a feeling that some resource allocation is probably not done in a very integrated way, and rather different sectors would probably go about their own planning in different ways. So if you look at the pyramid, then you feel like the integration of the way that resource allocation takes place is very high up in the pyramid and probably needs to start at a very low level. So what do you think in Pakistan's case, how that approach can change, how we can actually go into a nexus sort of an approach where we are integrating different sectors and planning for resources at a much earlier stage than actually is being done at the moment.
Actually, before I give answer to this, I'm quite tempted to bring Rafi Alam. He is one of the leading climate legislators. Okay. So he's a leading climate lawyer in Pakistan, working on different issues. Rafi, you can weigh yourself. So because we are doing this interactive roundtable sort of discussion, so please feel free to jump in wherever you want to. Arif, you are very right. The problem in Pakistan has been lack of integration, lack of coordination, and that's why I use the word that a lot is being done in Pakistan on SCCP without labeling it into SCCP, and that's where this nexus approach was missing. But then there are those turning moments for nation, and I think for me, July 2023 was a turning moment when we were at the abyss of default, and now taking off from July 2023, if you look at some of the policies and some of the procedures, some of the practices to do this course correction, I can very clearly see that the path is clear to policymakers, to governments, that we need to actually follow this circular nexus approach for circular economy in order to remain not only climate resilient and climate prepared, but also financially viable economy. The ways of our economic spending and production and consumption, perhaps it was not sustainable. That led us to the point where we were in July 2023. And during last 5 months, we can see that there is a huge improvement in the way things they are taking shape in Pakistan.
Sanjay, you want to ask a question?
Before Achla leaves, thank you. Achla, you mentioned about bankable project and inviting investments. If you look at where we are now, as a society in Pakistan, society is moving towards copying the model of consumption. And we are trying to divert them towards sustainable consumption production practices as part of their life. Now, if from a business angle, wherever community is moving, society is moving, that's bankable. But turning them towards sustainable consumption practices will need some time. And that's the crucial time when we need investments to actually help us divert the society or create a market for sustainable solutions. So how do we manage that? That's the interim period which is very crucial. Otherwise, bankable projects may continue to pursue the wasteful technologies which exist in the market.
Thank you, Sanjay. You are right. Maybe I'll give an example of how we do it. We work with business incubators and business accelerators to really provide grants and provide interest-free repayable loans to help them to really think about sustainable production mainly, and also push for sustainable practices. Not in Pakistan, we don't have that program in Pakistan, but we have a program called Greenpreneurs, and we also have a program called Technopreneurs. So there, we start with incubators, mainly incubators. We help the sole proprietors or small businesses to really think and create their business cases in a more sustainable manner. So that way we are, of course, maybe not turning a society that's already is practicing certain ways into a different direction, but we are actually creating a new wave of businesses and new thinkers to think about sustainability in a different way. That's one example that we could give. And the other one is there are areas in which that we come in and say, okay, now you've had your unsustainable consumption patterns. Let us now think about a different way to support you. For example, in Mongolia, we have a energy efficiency program in the building sector. As I'm sure you know, Mongolia has a lot of Soviet-era buildings, and the buildings are so old, the heat escapes from the buildings, and the winters are so cold, they keep burning dirty coal, and the whole Ulaanbaatar city, if you go there in winter, it's dark. And that's not because there is no sun, it's because there is so much dark fumes. So we are now retrofitting the buildings in Ulaanbaatar. I can't remember the number, but it's a big project funded by IKI to retrofit the buildings. And then we are also educating people on sustainable consumption of energy, how they should think about a different way of consuming energy in those building sectors. So there are different ways to think about it. But without practical solutions like this, if we just go and try to educate them, try to raise awareness, it's not going to work because there is no resources. So we have to think about bringing practical solutions to the theory that we are talking about, and really do it on the ground so that people know that we can decouple emissions from economic growth, and you don't have to do one or the other. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Lance, you want to?
Yes, Ivan, I think the issue of the financial system is absolutely critical. If we don't get the investors on board, we
we will fail. But I think the global economy is about $1.105 trillion per year. Okay, this is massive. So if we're going to find sustainable solutions only by additional small amounts of capital, we will fail. It is about shifting investments that are already there in a sustainable direction. Otherwise, we will fail. And what we have not done until now is to hold the financial system accountable for sustainability outcomes of their investments. We have requested in 30 years close to nothing from the financial system. So having them on board and holding them accountable for what they are financing and why they need to be part of this transition is absolutely critical. The other point that I wanted to make is that we tend to focus on all the new stuff and the good stuff, the green stuff that we are doing. And that's of course intellectually pleasing, for a policymaker it's pleasing, for an investor it's pleasing, but we don't pay enough attention on what we should be phasing out. And it's been rather central in this COP, but it's central in terms of subsidies, it's central in terms of tax systems, it's central in terms of spatial planning. If we don't shy away from negative investments, the green investments will not balance them out. So attention for what we should be phasing out is absolutely critical. It's also one of the new elements that we are focusing on in the Global Resource Outlook. I can tell you in the discussion with the political level, you don't get a standing ovation when you bring that in because it's difficult, and it's also, you know, where lobbyists and others have their playing field, but this is absolutely critical. Otherwise, we won't get there.
And just to interrupt the flow, because since Ashila wants to leave because we start late, but the secretary wants to give away some mementos to the panelists, so I just wanted to hold Ashila. Sir, to you, may I just ask so thank you very much for the gesture from the
A group photo,
Thank you,
sir?
and probably a group photo. Yeah.
May I do?
Oh, sorry.
Sir, can you please? Thanks. Thank you.
एक फोटो आप भी करवा
Secretary planning. She has been very quietly listening to the discussion. She is a independent secretary planning.
Thanks. Thank you.